Hello and welcome to the Volkswizard video blog. Today we're going to talk about this B7 RS4 convertible that I've got behind me. It's not a standard car, so it's going to be quite interesting to show you around the little bits and pieces that make this different from the usual RS4. But let's just have a recap of the B7 RS4 history. It was launched in 2006 and it ran for a couple of years. Unlike the original, you could have a saloon, you could have a convertible, and of course you could have the trademark estate. It had a 4.2 litre V8 engine that was normally aspirated, and it produced 420 PS, which is about 414 of our horsepower. It was very highly regarded by the press, maybe not so much in convertible format because it was a little bit too flexy for the Evos of this world, but generally the saloon and estate did really well, and they were seen as a high mark for Quattro GmbH chassis tuning, which apart from the R8 really they have never repeated. So the B7 RS4 is quite an important car in the history of Quattro GmbH and I suppose Audi as a whole really, because it showed they could compete with the best. So yeah, this is a convertible which was about £60,000 new, not an insignificant amount of money, but the total bill for this car with the modifications came to about £110,000. It's quite a lot of money, so let's have a look into the bonnet and see where that spending started. So there it is. Under the bonnet we have a supercharger. This forms a part of a kit from a company called MTM, Motor and Technik Meyer. They're one of the best Audi tuners in the world, located just a stone throw from Audi's Ingolstadt factory, and run by a guy called Roland Meyer, who with Roland and Gumpert were in charge of Audi's rallying program in the 1980s in the Volta Roll Quattro days, so a pedigree that's hard to beat. The question you're all probably going to ask is, what does it do to the engine in terms of performance? Well, the standard car's 420 PS goes up to 540 PS. That's an easy number to remember because it's the same as the current R8 V10, which is £120,000 I think. The torque gets a similar uplift. It goes up from 430 newton meters to 560 newton meters, but more importantly that comes down to 3,700 RPM instead of the 5,500 RPM of the standard car. So it's a lot more accessible, a lot more torque at a lot lower revs, makes this car quite a bit different to drive. Yeah, it's really very different. You're not waiting for that 5,000 RPM kick. It just kicks hard right through. And if your car goes better than standard, it's important that it stops better than standard, and to do that on this car we have a set of carbon ceramic brake discs from a company called Move It. They are 396mm. That's up from 365mm of the standard car. They feel pretty normal in normal use. They don't feel anything different to that of a normal car really, until you get them on track, and I'm sure they survive a lot longer and work a lot better. But in normal driving, there's no trade-off. They feel really good. At the back, it's still another Move It conversion, this time using steel discs. What's most interesting about this is that there's a little extra caliper there for the handbrake, which I believe is a bit like a Lamborghini or an R8. So yeah, a bit different, but still works really well. Let's just have a quick look at the back and check out the tailpipes on the rear. As standard, you get two oval tailpipes, which was at the time a bit of an RS trademark. MTM's own trademark is to have two oval pipes, so that's what we've got there, valved. So the sport button still opens and closes the valves. They're not particularly noisy, even with the race cats and different downpipe there, but it's a pretty civilised system. Got a nice bit of engraving on there for the MTM logo. So yeah, top quality as always. let's have a quick look inside. This car comes with the bucket seat option, which is quite a desirable thing. It's pretty rare on convertibles, very common on saloon and Avant. Not to everybody's taste admittedly, but they do look good. They're pretty comfortable for most people, and I get on with them quite well. I don't mess around very much with the adjustable bolsters that go in and out using the two switches there, which is also programmed to do that when you press the sport button, but can be deactivated, which I do straight away. A quirk of the convertible is that every car comes with a navigation system, so I'm not sure why that was standard on these. It was a couple of £1,000 on the other cars, but standard on the convertible. This car's got the wind deflector, which was again optional even at this value of car, but is pretty useful. Yeah, it does make a real difference when you're cruising with the roof down. Obviously having the windows up helps. It's got carbon inlays, which were standard, but you could choose not to have them. Bose sound was standard. Heated seats were standard. You have a starter button in the centre console, as on all RS4s. Still means you have to put the key in the normal slots and turn it, but that does the final bit of the starter motor and gives you quite a bit of theatre doing it. We have also the famous flat bottom steering wheel of the RS4 there, with controls for the trip computer and sport mode. As with all our Audis of this age, it's a really good quality interior. As you can see, it still looks good and it's worn really well. I don't really think the B8 is as good as this when it comes to quality, which is a bit of a shame. I've never really taken to the B8. It's also a bigger car, which I don't particularly like, but yeah, this is still a very nice place to be. Roof up or roof down. First impressions are of a normal RS4. There's nothing obviously different really. The only time it varies is a bit in the ride, which is a bit firmer, but it's not uncomfortable, and also we've got a lot more power under our right foot. But it's not really the power that's a problem with the RS4, it's the torque. At the lower RPMs they don't really perform very well. People get dragged by diesels if they get caught in the wrong gear. But this just obliterates all that low down laziness, and it just makes it a completely different car. I know it's 530 PS. It really never felt short of power in the top end of an RS4. It's just what it did below that was a bit disappointing, but that was a problem with putting all the power up top and making it a revvy engine. It lost the low down response. Even the S4 was a much more balanced drive. It didn't have the top end, but it had a lot more grunt, which is more what you expect from a V8 with 4.2 litres. So pop it into sport mode, use a button on the steering wheel, and the MTM exhaust, even though it's not standard, it's still got valves, so it's very, very civilised, apart from on cold start when it's a bit noisy. It's very, very civilised every other time, and it's not even that loud in sport, to be honest. It just makes verbal a bit louder, gives it a bit more bass really.